Hey YouTube, what's up? Thanks for tuning in. Let's talk a little bit about Orlandoos today. I did already tell you in December when I showed the video about the Tacoma that I will compare the Orlandoo stock electronics, which are quite awesome, with top electronics, as I do have them here in my Orlandoo Defender with the Flysky Noble and the German AS12.6 ESC, and this I will show you, and I will compare those two in a short video now. This Orlandoo does have the Laneboys RC light controller, and the Tacoma does have the stock light controller, what's also really nice, and the Tacoma does also have the sound system. Didn't build a sound system into the Defender. I don't like this really. So first, let's start. Let's take the bodies off. Let's make a little bit more light, and then let's check what's inside of those two. It's super easy and nice to take the body of the Tacoma. I love this system, as you can see here, but in the Defender it's quite a bit more difficult. It's quite annoying. And maybe, okay, it does work much better in the Jeeps. In the Defender it's a pain. Let's make light. Now let's check what's inside. First, that's the system. That's quite a new system in the Tacoma to mount and unmount the body, and that's really awesome and works awesome, while the Defender does only have this simple clip-on system, and it's super hard, mainly mounting the body and not breaking anything. That's the same system as in the Ford and in the Pajero and in the Jeeps, but in the Defender I do have much greater problems to mount the body. So this system in the Tacoma is super nice. And inside I use the same motors, I guess 300 RPM motors for both models. And I use those small 180 milliamp hours 2S LiPos with the JST-PH 3-pin UMX system. I love those. They fit perfectly for Orlandoo's. I really love those batteries. Unfortunately, Hobby King, I guess, does not have them anymore. They were also super cheap. And here you see the receiver ESC unit of the Orlandoo D4L system, the radio receiver unit, and it's really a nice system and it's super easy to use. Here's the light controller unit where you have to connect all the LEDs, and here's the loudspeaker. I don't know if that's the perfect position. And what's also nice in the Tacoma, it does have an on-off switch. And the Defender doesn't even have a dedicated place for an on-off switch. Initially I wanted to mount an on-off switch, simple small switch. Didn't do it so far, regret it, because taking off the body is so difficult. What you can see here is the small DMR receiver for the Flysky Noble. That's this receiver. Does use JST ZH 1.5mm plugs, and here you see the awesome Laneboys RC light controller. I showed you already several times. That's this awesome stuff. 16 LEDs can be programmed to your liking, and somewhere there's also the ESC. It sits here, and what you see here, that's a AS12.6RW from Modellbauregler DE. These awesome, super nice, tiny ESCs which do have absolutely fantastic low speed behavior, but no BEC. And of course I mounted a BEC, and you see 4.2 volts. What's the problem? In Orlando's, you normally use those super micro servos, Orlandoo servos, or also available from some other companies, and those are low voltage servos. And a normal BSC or ESC BSC will have 5 or 6 volts out, and honestly I do not know if one of those low voltage servos will run for a long time on 5 or 6 volt. I didn't test it, and there are several possibilities. As I showed you in my bouncer, where I did make a detailed video, I use a Tundra ESC with 6 volt out for this. I used the diode to reduce the voltage for the low voltage servo, but in the Defender I used a BSC which doesn't have 5 or 6 volt. You could use one of those kinds of BSCs or voltage regulators, 3.3 volts, but I wanted to go 1S, and therefore I use one of those where you can adjust the voltage. Maybe you can see it here. Should I take it out? I guess it's not necessary. They do have a screw and you can adjust the voltage, I guess, from 3 to 9 volts. However, it works awesome. I adjusted the voltage to 4.2 volt. Good for the servo and quite high voltage for an Orlandoo. But don't mount it and simply use it and think it's on 5 or 6 volts. I destroyed 2 of those on-off switches, simple light on-off switch, in my grave digger, in my SCX24 grave digger, where I mounted such a switch and such a BSC and didn't check it, and the voltage was, I guess, 7 or 8 volts, so no problem for servos, no problem for receiver, but I burned 2 of those on-off switches. They are super cheap, not a big problem, and didn't know why. And then I took the BSC out again and checked the voltage, and it was 7 or 8 volts. So that's the electronics of the Defender. And that's the top electronics, I would say. But in this video I will not recommend to you to buy the top electronics, because the stock electronics of the Orlandoo, of the D4L, are really nice. Of course, low speed behavior is much better in the Defender. I will show this to you. And of course the Flysky Noble is an awesome radio, but it's not necessary. In my bouncer I use the GT3C, also an awesome radio, so that's medium electronics, I would say. And the problem is also you have to make your own wiring and plugs, and if you are not really confident in crimping those tiny plugs or soldering, that's probably not the way to go. I will show you now. Take the bodies on, put the bodies on again, that the driving behavior of course is much better. And the light controller, you can do what you want with this light controller. However, this light controller is awesome too. So a little bit better here. Of course, much cooler, but that's awesome value for the money with the Orlandoo D4L. So let's take the bodies on, or put the bodies on again. In the Tacoma, I do have to plug this tiny plug in because there are lights in the body. And you will see now how easy it is to put on this body, at least not in front of camera. Let's see how it works now. Simply perfect. And in the Defender it's much harder, and I will do this off camera now. It's super easy because to have to press to break something, to break off the side mirrors. Back again. Was easier this time. Sometimes it works easier, sometimes it makes more problems. I found I lost mud flaps here. And now let's compare those. Sound unit is not a point. You can get a sound unit for the Defender too, but honestly I'm not the biggest fan of the sound units. However, it's super nicely made in the Tacoma or in the D4L system. You can adjust the volume of the sound unit. You see I do have on 0 now, and I put it on, now that's maximum, and you start. Years ago I really loved this stuff, meanwhile I think it's more annoying. And you can adjust the sound volume here to starts again, and after some seconds it will stop. Silence. And you have really nice light functions. So one click is headlights on and rear lights on, and you do have, let's switch the sound off. You see reverse lights and brake lights, and you do have, of course, turning lights. But as in most light controllers, those turning lights are always on if you make a turn. So I really do not like this. You can't switch it off. So if you're driving, you will always have turning lights on if you're going in circles. And you have those fog lights, therefore you have to press the button for a long time, and now they are on. And now they are off. And of course you can also turn on hazard lights. 2 clicks and you see hazard lights on, and 2 clicks, hazard lights off. And there are several, I don't know what, some kind of disco functions. 3 clicks, 3 clicks. Well, if you like it, disco light. But normally 1 click, headlights on and rear lights and off. 2 clicks, hazard lights, and long click, fog light. That's quite nice. What I do not like are those turning lights. Which are, I've found now, only on if your turn lights on. So if you are driving without lights, no turning lights. However, absolutely awesome functions and bang for the buck. And in my Defender I programmed, what did I program? 1 click, main beams 50%, second click, fog lights also 50%, third clicks, fog lights and main beams 100%, 3 clicks, everything off, 1 click, 2 click, 2 clicks is 1 step back, 2 clicks is 1 step back, and hazard lights are 4 clicks, hazard lights on, 4 clicks, hazard lights off. Of course, do have all this brake and reverse lights, and if I put the light on, you do also have a license plate light. I guess I use only 20% of maximum power for the license plate light, so it's quite nice. And what I really like in the Lameboys RC light controller, and what you can see here, the turning lights will only be on and work if the car is standing still for at least 1 second. And if you are driving, they won't be on. So you are driving without turning lights, and if you want to pause parking lot and then turning lights are on. I really don't like this if the trucks drive and turning lights are always on. So those are the functions I programmed. You can program probably what you want to my Orlandoo Defender. Tiny turning lights. Quite a lot of LEDs in this Orlandoo. 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 LEDs. So those are the light functions of my Defender, but that's nothing. Doesn't even have a driver figure. Nobody will ever see it. I didn't put a driver figure into my Tacoma, but I wouldn't say that's so much better. The Orlandoo light controller is really, really, really nice. But what's the biggest advantage of the Defender compared to the Tacoma is, of course, the driving behavior, the motor modulation. So check this out now. I will show you my index finger in the Tacoma. You hear it's super noisy, ESC, and that's probably the slowest I can go. And you hear the noise. So it was not centered, so that's about minimum speed I can go with the Orlandoo ESC. And now check the Defender. No noise at all, no noise at all, no noise of the ESC. And of course you can also go faster if you want. And the modulation is so much better. And that's of course the main advantage of the Defender compared to the noisy Tacoma. Let's climb a little bit. What could I use to let Orlandoos climb? Will it do it? I guess he will. I try to go as slow as possible, and you see this? That's absolutely fantastic, isn't it? The same in reverse. And now let's try the Tacoma. You hear the noise? And I can't go, so it's not, I can't go slowlier than I do now. I show it to you. Check my index finger. That's the slowest I can go, and then it will stop. And it's not super bad, it's super loud, but check my index finger. I can't really slowly climb this super easy incline, and with my Defender and the Modellbauregler DE AS126 I really love this. Check it out, and it does not stop. It climbs, climbs, climbs. Super slow till it's okay. That's not the problem with the ESC or the motor. It's high centered. Super silent and super slow. Isn't that nice? So that's the biggest advantage of my top electronic Orlandoo compared to my stock electronic Orlandoo. Come on, Tacoma. Of course, if you want to go fast, that's not a problem. And if you are not annoyed by the noise, that's not a problem either. So if you are not super into micro building and soldering and preparing wires and whatever, I don't recommend to make all this effort. Of course it's cool, but for the price what this costs, it's the radio is only 60-70 including lights and sound, and you get often kits including radio with the light and sound system and all this stuff. So that's really, really good value for the money, and nearly everything is awesome. The only thing, turning lights, but you are used to this, and of course you can't drive as cool as you can with this. And that's it for this video, guys. I don't recommend to buy this version or that version. Honestly, I can recommend both, and you get a lot for your money in the Orlandoo set. Thanks for watching, guys. See you in the next video. I'll be back.